opening keynote is something that I think you'll find absolutely fascinating because it really follows on from what Benjamin and I were talking about in terms of trying to understand how to reinvent education and the meaning of education in the context of the disruption that we face in front of us. So it is very much my pleasure to welcome, I think, something you'll find absolutely fascinating, Jim Garrison, who is the president and founder of Ubiquity University. So a big round of applause. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I must say I loved what Charles and Benjamin were just speaking about, and my remarks for the next few minutes will follow on from what they were talking about. When one talks about the reinvention of education, one really has to talk about the reinvention of what it means to be human in an age of hypercomplexity. Take a look at that slide. These are global trends for the last 250 years. And starting in 1950 with what the scientists call the Great Acceleration, intensifying in the year 2000, virtually every single trend, every single challenge to the human race has escalated and is now metastasizing, and at the center of it is runaway climate change. And that is a lot more than how we educate our young. That is about humanity's basic relationship to the entire ecosystem. Hypercomplexity is a state, because these trends are all commingling, where little events anywhere can have major repercussions everywhere as they ricochet through the global system. I'm going to take the next few minutes to work out the implications of this slide in the realm of education and technology. The first implication is that the competencies we need to navigate hypercomplexity are very different than the competencies we needed before 1950, where education was about knowledge. In study after study, starting with the IBM major study in 2010 and 12 and 14, what is more important than what you know is who you are. To navigate hypercomplexity, you need to be collaborative, communicative, creative, flexible. You have to have critical thinking. You need to be tech savvy. But you really need to be able to play well with others, think out of the box, and be emotionally resilient. And none of our major educational institutions are dealing with that. But these emerging competencies are redefining the challenge confronting education. The other challenge to education are the new generation of young people. The millennials born between 1983 and 2003, the so-called Gen Zs born since 2003. They're the first digital generations in history, hence EdTech. But they're the first generations since the beginning of modern education where degrees no longer secure jobs. Senior executive at Google last month said that the worst people to hire are the students from the graduates from the elite institutions. I'm a Harvard man. I'm a Cambridge man. When I got my degrees, when you went to Harvard or Cambridge, you were somebody. Now, they're saying you're not the right person to hire because, according to the Google executive, graduates from the elite institutions don't have enough intellectual humility. So think about the crisis of education when the institutions are producing a product, a degree, that is radically losing currency in the market, which means education needs to be about entrepreneurship, which I'll get to in just a second, so that the central challenge for education, in my view as an educator, is how do you educate for those competencies on the right-hand side of the slide, for creativity, collaboration, leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship, complex problem solving. That means you need an integral learning system. You've got to shift from knowledge to personal growth and the capacity for effective collaboration and communication and social engagement. Now, I'd just like to share with you the way we're approaching this problem. We're an academic institution founded in California in 1996. We come right out of Silicon Valley, and we have designed a new learning system, the purpose of which is to reinvent education as we know it. In a conventional school, your academic study is 100% because it's content-driven. It's knowledge-driven. You take your trigonometry test, and if you pass, you go on to the next course. At Ubiquity, and increasingly in other schools, it's only 33% of your education. Self-mastery, which builds the interior practices, the emotional intelligence, is as important at Ubiquity as your academic study. And then thirdly, and equally importantly, every student at Ubiquity is trained in entrepreneurship, and our promise to our students, as you progress, we will mentor you and we will finance you. Imagine a university, an accredited university that's also a venture capital firm. It's an academic institution, but it's also a technology platform for its students. Technology is important. Most of the learning systems out there are proprietary, very expensive, and very clunky. Ours is open source. If you can navigate Facebook, and 1 billion plus people a day do that, you can navigate the Ubiquity technology platform, which actually puts the student at the center in an extraordinarily refined student engagement center, and has a technology platform that is second to none. The other challenge, again, which was emphasized in the first plenary session, is the fact that education needs to have a completely new business model. You know, if you go to Harvard, founded in 1637, it hasn't moved an inch in 500 years. You can walk across Harvard Yard in about 15 minutes. But if there's 1 billion young people in the next few years that are going to need education, Harvard's not enough. Do you know how many undergraduates Harvard has? It's only got 4,000 undergraduates. It's very small. You can put all the elite schools in the world together, and they don't come to a student body much more than 250,000, and we have a planet of 8 billion people. So the key to the reinvention of education from a business point of view is not only to be B2C, but also B2B, and become a network orchestrator like Airbnb or Uber or Alibaba. Airbnb doesn't own a single room. Uber doesn't own a single car. Ubiquity doesn't own a single campus. We're completely synergizing with partners by the hundreds all over the world. Final point I want to make is that it's much bigger than EdTech. If education is going to become a venture capital support for its students, it has to be FinTech. If you're going to develop the left brain and the right brain together, it has to be ArtTech. So I think the challenge for EdTech is the challenge of cross-fertilizing with other technologies in other human domains, because we're moving into a world where not only education, finance, and art, but biology, medicine are all moving into technology. Everything is X-Tech. And it's going to be our capacity to develop that which will determine our success as educators. Final slide and final point. Everything is moving into VR. We are about ready to experience the most fundamental transformation in humanity's relationship to reality itself with virtual reality. Right now, you're looking at a slide. You look at your computer screens, your iPhones, you're looking at me. You're looking from the inside out, but what's about ready to happen if you've ever had a VR set on is the learning goes on inside your head, inside your consciousness. And the implications of that are almost beyond imagination. So education needs to fuse learning, technology, and innovation, and it needs to most fundamentally prepare our young people to navigate a world of increasing hypercomplexity. Thank you very much.